Mr. Layfield.
Ray, how are you?
Good. How about you, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks. Sorry for being a little late. I was out playing golf.
You're fine.
We were out avoiding tornadoes here in Memphis.
Oh my goodness! In Memphis. Are you in Memphis?
I'm in Memphis. Steven's in Tuscaloosa.
Yes.
Really? So there's tornadoes in Memphis?
Mm-hmm.
So just outside in Holly Springs, Mississippi, and just north of Memphis. But yeah, a lot of flooding. So before we get going, we're not a gotcha show or anything like that, but we want to make you the smartest and funniest guy in the room. So if there's a funny story that you always enjoy sharing, let us know, and we'll set you up so you can be the funniest guy. And if there's something that you want us to ask you, so you are the smartest guy here, which I'm sure you already are.
I don't know about that. I don't know about funniest either. But I'm one of three, so the worst I am is third.
Right.
And what would you like for us to call you tonight?
I don't care. John, JBL, people, Bradshaw, people call me all the above, and that makes me no difference.
Okay. Yeah, we want to call you something, and it's it's Mr. Layfield to you. Like, oh,
no, it's not.
Okay. All right. Well, how did you shoot today?
Terrible. Oh my God, that stupid game.
Yeah.
I got a bad back, from wrestling, so I work really hard in my short game. So my short game is really good because I can always putt and chip with a bad back. I can't always hit a long iron and wood. So I'm really erratic off the tee. Some are really good, some are all over the place. So.
All right, well, Steven, I'm ready if you are, brother.
I love playing. I can play every day. I love the game.
Okay.
It's like a drug. It's like a drug playing golf.
In fact, we got a golf tournament coming up in Memphis, May 23rd.
Yeah, where at?
I got I don't know. I work with a charity there, Memphis Inner City Rugby, and we work with. I'm on the board there. We're wonderful young guys. Do a wonderful job there with those kids and some of the worst child poverty, as you know, in the country. And Absolutely. We were putting a golf tournament together, and I can't remember. I saw the name. I didn't recognize the name, but it's May 23rd.
I got you. Well, great.
Yes. All right.
Jerry Lawler's hosting the party the night before.
John, I'm 46 years old. There's a joke on our show, and people outside of Memphis, when you say the king, they think it's Elvis. But everybody from Memphis, if you say the king, it's Jerry. It's
especially not
Jerry.
Especially not if you ask Jerry who the king is.
Well, I'll give you a spoiler alert. Oh, excuse me. I was sick a month ago. That cough pops up about once an hour. I apologize. But I was going to ask you a Jerry Lawler story, so I guess you could go on and start thinking of some of those. But yeah, I love any and all Jerry Lawler stories.
Oh, he's the best. He rode with me back and forth to Mania last week. I had a good time with him and Jimmy Hart and Booker T.
Oh my gosh, yes, please.
Booker T. I don't care about cars. I could care less. I grabbed the first car on the Emerald Isle. I've done that for 30 years, national. So I grabbed some Malibu, and it was like 57,000 miles on a rented car. And on a rented car, 57,000 miles is a lot because people don't they don't treat those cars very well. Mm-hmm. The car had every problem in the world. It's broken down. Oh my God, they bitched the whole way.
So someone who drives a Batmobile would complain about that.
Of course.
All right. I'm going to pull this down and we're going to get going, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Today on the Stingray Show, we are going to take you back in time to the late 90s and early 2000s in the WWE because we are going to talk with the guy who is the longest reigning WWE champion in SmackDown TV history, a wrestling God. That and a whole lot more coming up on this edition of the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. Dogs and Stingray are coming for you! This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
I don't know if you want me to get mad. I don't know if you want me to get mean. I don't know if you want me to get rowdy. But that's what I'm about to do. Worst defense
ever! We are Mississippi State! Fear the Bills!
How many chicken wings you eat in a sitting? And you just look, ballpark it.
4.
What?
4 chicken wings, my.
And Heath, any final thoughts before we sign off here on Tide 100.9?
It is great to be on with all the great folks in Tuscaloosa. And hey, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because this is going to be the best show going today, baby.
Welcome inside another edition of the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. And let me just go on ahead and say hello to my co-host over in Olive Branch, Mississippi, also in Hernando, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Heath Hopkins. Heath, how are you doing on this episode, sir?
Trying to pay the electric bill. Steven, how are you, brother?
Man, I am absolutely thrilled beyond belief about this episode today.
Wow, Steven, it's like we haven't had a Hall of Famer on the show before.
I know, but I mean, this one is going to be over the top. Now, of course, we did have Eric Bischoff on a little bit earlier, but now we're talking about, like I said off the top, the longest reigning WWE champion in SmackDown history, the one and only, the tycoon himself, JBL. What are you most looking forward to in this interview?
I want to hear some of the stories that happened backstage. I want to hear some of the storylines that didn't happen.
Yes.
I want to hear about football. And, he's got a nice football career. He played college ball. Farouk, Rondell Simmons also played college football.
Yes.
They were part of the APA. But I want to know the discussions about football those two guys had together. And the laughs, and did they sit around and watch football together? I wanted to hear their side of it. Stone Cold played a little college football at North Texas. So there's several guys in the WWE, Goldberg, obviously, at Georgia, that played football. And so I just want to know if those guys ever get together and talk chalk. And, do they get together for Super Bowl parties, that kind of thing.
Man, this is going to be absolutely fantastic. And you got, there was also, he is a friend or was a friend of the late, great Eddie Guerrero. I want to get into that as well.
Yeah, being from Memphis, Jerry Lawler is still the king. Everyone outside of Memphis thinks the king is Elvis in Memphis. If you live in Memphis and you're from Memphis, the king is Jerry Lawler.
Yes.
It's not Elvis. It's Jerry Lawler. So, I definitely want to ask you if he has any Jerry Lawler stories or anything fun he could share with us.
Well, Heath, it's that time. Are you excited about what's to come here on the Stingray Show?
Absolutely. It's not every day we get Hall of Famers. We've had a couple before, but I am definitely looking forward to this one.
Yes. Now, we are about to talk with the longest reigning WWE champion in SmackDown TV history. He is also a former football player, a retired professional wrestler, American businessman, television personality, and is also featured regularly on Fox News Channel and Fox Business Network. And he was inducted here recently into the WWE Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Bradshaw Layfield. Mr. Layfield, thank you so much for joining us today.
I have no possible chance of living up to that introduction, but thank you very much for those kind words.
Yes. So I've got to ask you, obviously, we're on the air right here in Tuscaloosa. And when I first reached out to you, you said that your dad was a huge Bear Bryant fan and an Alabama fan. Talk about that briefly, please.
Oh, yeah. My dad was a massive – my dad passed away a couple of years ago, but he lived to be 88 years old. He loved college football. In fact, he was at the Cotton Bowl one of the first dates I ever had with my mom when the guy came off the bench back in
Yeah.
the 50s. And my dad was there for that game in the Cotton Bowl. But he loved Paul Bear Bryant. I don't know what it was about Paul Bear Bryant. I don't know because he started at Texas A&M or what it was, but he loved Bear Bryant. He just always talked about how that man did it right. That man was a college coach. He just revered Paul Bear Bryant. So I grew up being an Alabama fan as well. Now I loved my Texas Longhorns now. So loved Run and Earl Campbell, the Tyler Rose. I loved all those guys. But I'm a big Alabama fan.
Yes.
You know, I believe I remember seeing this. I think you could probably find it on YouTube somewhere. But that guy that ran off the bench, I can't remember his name. He was the captain, and they brought him on the Ed Sullivan Show to find out why he did it. And his answer was great. I was so filled with Alabama, I just couldn't take it.
Yeah,
that's
my
why he
dad
came off
was-
the bench and made that tackle.
My dad was sitting on the other side of the field and said he had a perfect view of it. He said he could see the guy get off the bench and everything and come across and make the tackle.
That's amazing.
One of the craziest events ever. It was, it's one of those lures of college football.
Now, you played a little college football yourself. You were a Wildcat at Abilene Christian, correct?
Sure was. I grew up right near Abilene, grew up in Sweetwater, Texas. And back then, you had two sports. You had football and spring football. And that was about it. We didn't have baseball. We didn't have baseball because they thought the kids would play baseball instead of spring football. It was that bad. And so I went to my college that I wanted to go to right near me. My dad had taught a little bit at Abilene Christian and got to go there for 4 years. And very fortunate and blessed in the College Hall of Fame there and on their All-Century team named a couple of years ago.
Who were some of the guys you played against that maybe went on that we might know?
John Randall. Randall was we went to Trinity Valley Community College. A good guy. I follow him now on Instagram. He's a big Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. I saw him up in Minnesota, and I played right tackle. He played left tackle. He broke every sack record there was, and he was the player of the year. And I thought if I could move to left tackle, I could play well against John, that maybe I could steal some of those honors from him. And in the second quarter, I catch a helmet on my knee brace, and it snapped my ankle in half.
Oh.
And I tried to play the rest of the game. I actually played the rest of the game. I say tried because I didn't do a very good job. And I ended up giving up a sack to him in the third quarter. So I wish I'd have got to play 4 quarters healthy against him. He was a wonderful talent, and he might have got a sack or two anyway. But I certainly had a good time working for a whole year to play against John Randall. And he was every bit, as they say. He was quite the stud. Yes. Pierce Holt. I've actually had 2 All-Pros break my leg. Pierce Holt, my freshman year, they were double-teaming him because he was such a stud. He went to San Francisco 49ers, became an All-Pro, and the center blocked him over as I'm watching the linebacker, and it broke my leg straight back. And so I've had 2 All-Pros break my leg.
Yes.
That's terrible. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, let's go in and talk about your wrestling career. What ultimately made you decide to get into professional wrestling after your football career?
I'd always been a wrestling fan. I grew up, one of my youngest memories was with my grandfather in Sweetwater, Texas, watching KTVT Channel 11, and it was the Von Erichs. It was Fritz Von Erich before the kids debuted. And I remember like it was yesterday when Kevin first debuted. I got to catch some of the Funk's wrestling. We were kind of in the middle of the Funk's territory and the Von Erichs territory. So I grew up a wrestling fan. I just was hoping I'd play pro football, for my career. And then when that didn't work out, I thought I got a chance to do something that I've always wanted to do since I was a kid, and hopefully young enough and still healthy enough to play, to go into wrestling and make some money at it.
Yes.
Thinking back to those days, I always heard Steve Austin talk about the Sportatorium. Was that kind of a legendary venue for you to wrestle in?
Beyond legendary. I tell you, growing up watching Fritz and all the guys who came through Dallas, that was the one place I wanted to be. That had more appeal to me, and maybe just because of my ignorance and not having, we didn't have proliferation of cable television back then, so we didn't have, 50 channels. Right. I'd heard of Madison Square Garden, but the Sportatorium to me was the biggest venue in the world. So when I got to wrestle there, I thought this is an absolute dream come true.
What does the Sportatorium look like now? Is it just a vacant lot? Is it still there?
It is completely torn down. There's nothing there. I went by it about a couple of years ago just to see it on Katie's and Industrial. It was in a bad part of town. There's a liquor store across the street. It was Oh my God, it was so hot in the summer and it was so cold in the winter. You know, Elvis played there. I mean, it was a great musical venue. It was decades past its prime by the time we were there, and even by the time the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds in the mid '80s was so hot, that building was a dump then, and it lasted a lot longer and probably shouldn't have. But it was a great old venue.
Well, to follow up with that, what are some venues that you really enjoy? Because you were in Germany, you were in Japan, of course, all over America. What are some of venues that you really enjoyed and kind of soaked it all in?
The Garden, Madison Square Garden, and no doubt about it. Once I started getting around, I realized how important Madison Square Garden was. And when I went there the first time, they still had the doctors there that took blood pressure for Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier.
Wow.
Back in the fight of the century back in '71. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, you got to be kidding me, man. We're in Madison Square Garden. This is unbelievable. Korakuen Hall in Japan. It wasn't, Budokan was a bigger hall, but Korakuen was where everybody, you had to make your name there. And every group would come there with their big show. Earl's Court in London was a huge venue, and the Staples Center. I loved wrestling at the Staples Center. In fact, Eddie Guerrero and I held the attendance record there for quite a few years.
That's awesome. Well, talk about your days of joining the WWE. What was that like for you joining that company?
I had wrestled all over the world. I'd wrestled in Japan, I don't know how many times, 20, 30 times probably. I wrestled in Mexico, wrestled in Texas. I wasn't making much money, and I wrestled in Europe. Was the first big break I got working for Otto Vance and Peter William over there. I spent 2 years over there wrestling, living in a caravan, a camper, just outside the venue. We'd wrestle the same building 8 straight weeks, every single night, same people every night. And then I finally got the call to come to WWE in 1995. And I remember thinking I was ready. You know, back then, everybody who made it to WWE had been a champion somewhere. You know, it's kind of like professional football. You know, everybody had been an All-American somewhere. Everybody had been the stud of their college or whatever it was. And that's how it was then. And when I got there, I thought, I'm ready for this. And then that first WrestleMania, when I saw Shawn Michaels rappel from the ceiling and he and Bret Hart had that 60-minute Iron Man match, I just remember thinking, this is so far over my head. I have no business being in this company. I just remember thinking, this is beyond me. It was almost a feel. I remember being in awe of it, but also thinking, I'm not ready for this. It was pretty overwhelming.
Yes.
I want to follow up with that. Who was one guy that you always enjoyed watching growing up, and then you got in the ring with them and like, oh my gosh, I am about to wrestle? Who?
Kevin Von Erich, no doubt about it. It was the first match we had was for a title, NWA North American Heavyweight title, and I remember sitting across the ring from him, and I was so in awe of him. It wasn't a very good match, and I felt bad about that for years, and it wasn't because of Kevin, you know, obviously it's because of me. I was just in awe of him. I wanted to ask him for a photo and an autograph. You know, I grew up watching him. I remember him debuting, and I was just in awe of it. And I thought, I'll never let that happen again. And I was out there, the first live Monday Night Raw I was with Undertaker. And I remember kind of feeling the same way. That purple haze comes up. It's dong, dong. It was right after WrestleMania. He had wrestled Diesel in this incredible physical match. And there I am there with him. And I remember thinking the same thing. I'm at least going to err on the side of aggressiveness. And so after that, I kind of got over it. But that first time with Kevin I was a deer in headlights.
Wow. You know, you mentioned something just then about hearing the music and stuff. Of course, the fans love the music. That's always been the thing. But, you know, is there ever a time you're in the ring and you hear, you know, you guys know what music's about to be played, but is it always just fun to hear it?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I've been out there, I don't know, maybe 100 or 200 times, maybe when Undertaker's music plays, because I was the top heel in 0405 for the SmackDown brand. He was the top babyface, and so we worked most of the shows together. And on dark matches after TV, they would always build the Undertaker so people would stay through the television show. And I always go out there and do something with him. So I've been out there with him, no telling how many times, over 100, I would guess. And to hear that music, it was just awesome. I mean, it was incredible. Every single time, it was incredible. And every entrance was basically the same. You know, he was so good at it, but he never got out of character. It was always, it was so freaking impressive. And Shawn Michaels when he would come out in the mid-90s, it was like you unplugged electric wire and stuck it in a pool and shocked everybody. It was unbelievable, the excitement that he created. Yeah, it was pretty cool to be out there when the glass would break and Stone Cold would come out, and that's a pretty cool thing.
Talk about your transition going from Bradshaw to the heel JBL. How much of a challenge was that for you initially?
It was tough initially because nobody bought it, and that was the problem.
Oh, wow.
People had seen me as Bradshaw, the beer drinking partner of Ron Simmons for so long. They knew we were good friends. And when I first transitioned to JBL, it happened so fast that nobody really bought it. What happened was that you had, I think, Kurt Angle was hurt, Big Show was hurt, Brock had left the company, and they needed somebody to wrestle Eddie Guerrero at the Staples Center in about 6 weeks. And so Vince called me, and I really thought I was retired. I had torn a bicep. I had 2 hernia operations, and I thought I'm just, I've had a good run, but that was probably it. And at the time, I was also doing a lot with the troops overseas. So I was going over every Christmas to Afghanistan and Iraq, and I thought that's going to be my role, which was fine with me. And Vince called and said, we need somebody right away. And I'd had this idea for a character. To me, it was a J.R. Ewing type character, a J.R. Ewing mixed with the $1 Million Man.
Right.
I'm not sure how Vince saw it, because people have asked Vince since, did you see it as a J.R. Ewing character? And he didn't. So I'm not sure what he saw it as, but I know how he described JBL. And so we brought the character out, and nobody bought it. It wasn't working. And then Eddie and his brother Chavo came up with the idea to give his mother, who was married to the legend Gory Guerrero, who had passed away in El Paso, on Mother's Day weekend in El Paso, while they're honoring Gory Guerrero, I was going to come out and give his mother a heart attack. and after that, it was unbelievable. Business just went through the roof. I mean, we started selling out places. That's when the Staples Center had a record amount of ticket sales, set the attendance record. People started jumping in the ring. I had to have police protection. It was an incredible time.
Tell us about that police protection, because my next question is this. Obviously, wrestling fans are very passionate. What is one of the wildest moments that you've ever had face-to-face with a fan?
It wasn't face-to-face. I was in Vienna. I was wrestling Luke Poirier, who had the moniker Rambo. And he later was in the Truth Commission. A really talented guy, good-looking, big guy. And we were wrestling for a championship in Vienna. And I got in so much heat that night, they started to riot. And local police wouldn't help me. And so Otto sent all of the boys out of the back to come save me, and literally save me. And somebody behind me had pulled a butterfly knife. I didn't see it, but they were going to stick me in the back with it. And Fit Finlay, the old tough North Irish wrestler, who's a dear friend of mine, I don't know if he saved my life, but he certainly saved me from getting stabbed in the back.
Wow. Wow. I heard
in El Paso that night, they literally took me to the city limit and they said, don't come back. We can't guarantee your safety. they made me drive all the way to Odessa to fly out. They wouldn't let me stay in the city limits. They said, we think something will happen to you.
Wow.
The late Bobby Heenan, when he was on Larry King, I thought this was the funniest quote. Larry King asked him what was the scariest thing about wrestling fans. And Bobby, being typical Bobby Heenan, he said, they can reproduce and they can vote. And I thought that was the greatest line. But
he's the greatest. When they talk about who the greatest commentators are of all time, they mean
absolutely.
They mean who's second, because Bobby Heenan is so far ahead of everybody else. Jerry Lawler may be second, but Bobby Heenan is far and above the rest of the world.
We will get to the King very shortly, but what is one of the craziest things a wrestling fan has ever asked you to do or asked you for or said to you? I mean, like, oh my gosh, they just really say that.
We always had back in the day, we had to stay in character, because like in Germany, we would wrestle 8 straight weeks at the same venue. And so when you went out, you couldn't be out of character. So there were oh my goodness, there were some pretty wild times with fans who would either want to try you or would the worst thing in the world was when a fan comes to you and say, I see you laughing, you're not a bad person. And they would try to break character, I can't repeat what all was said. So
Oh yeah.
We had some fun.
We're almost a family friendly show. We could take things out if needed later on in post production. Hey, fun thing. What was your favorite match that you ever had?
A couple. The first match with Eddie Guerrero was it happened. It was the one that was so bloody. It was something that I knew was a one-off if it didn't work. And so I was so proud because I knew about halfway through that it was going to work. I had a match with Undertaker in the Meadowlands. I think the pay-per-view was No Mercy, I think. And it just worked. It was just magical. I mean, everything worked right. I tell you, the best match I ever had, nobody saw. The live crowd saw it. I was in Mexico, and I wrestled Chris Benoit. And we wrestled a ton of times around the loop. And we came out of the ring that night, and Chris walked through the curtain and just raised his hands over his head. And I've never had a better match. Everything worked perfectly. And the next night, we're still in Mexico. We tried to go out and do the same match, and we fell flat on our face. So I don't know what happened that night, but it was just, I remember it like it was 2 seconds ago. It was just magical. Sometimes you just have these things happen, and you remember it till the day you die.
Wow. With that, who was your favorite opponent?
Probably Undertaker. Eddie Guerrero was, it's hard to say. I got to wrestle so many great guys. Shawn Michaels was just amazing. I was so proud and happy that I got to do a storyline with him before I and he retired. I got to wrestle Undertaker so many times, and Eddie Guerrero. I had fun with nearly everybody I was in the ring with. Ron and I had some great times. We had some great times with the Dudleys in and out of the ring. We had fun. It was just, business was fun to me. It was fun to Ron Simmons, my tag team partner. We just enjoyed being out there.
Right. Well, guys, real quick, we got to take a short break. And when we come back, we are going to continue the interview with JBL right here on Tide 100.9. You're listening to the Stingray Show. And we are back here on Tide 100.9 here on the Stingray Show with JBL. And John, I've got to ask you, where did you come up with your finishing move, the clothesline from hell? Because honestly, that had to feel like an awful thing when you hit somebody with that.
I hope it did, and I hope those guys still feel it.
Right.
I hope every one of them feel it.
Yeah.
It was I copied Barry Windham a lot. When I was younger, I kind of had the same kind of the body of like Barry Windham. Couldn't work like Barry Windham. He was one of the best of all time. But I used his lariat, that flying lariat he did.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when I went to Japan, the Japanese boss, Mr. Sakurado, Kenda Nagasaki, told me, he said, I don't like your finish. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a finish. And so the way I threw it, he didn't like it. So he asked me to start trying different things with it. And over 5 weeks, I copied Terry Gordy is who I copied. Gordy was the only one I've ever seen throw it like I threw it with, like the baseball, where you wrap it around the shoulder.
Right.
Gordy was such a good worker. A lot of things I did, I copied Gordy, but that clothesline came from Terry Gordy. Now I added the running to it,
Yes.
which Gordy didn't necessarily have, but that came over about a 5-week tour in Japan.
Right. Well,
Anybody cry or nag after a match about how hard you hit them?
No. That, guys love to bitch about it, because guys just love to bitch. But the thing is, if they're bitching, they're not really hurt. They just enjoy it.
Yeah.
They're like me. I go, what the hell is that? Guys had a lot of fun. I think as much fun bitching as they did. I don't think nobody really cared. I'm sure I potatoed several guys, but those are tough guys.
right. Well, what throughout all of your career as a wrestler, what is one storyline that you thought would be a $1 million idea that you honestly never got to do?
That's a great question. I had an idea with Del Rio one time when Del Rio was hot. And it didn't work out. I had a picture one time of Ted DiBiase, me, and Alberto Del Rio, and I said 3 generations of stolen gimmicks. And I thought it'd be so great to be out there with Del Rio because he was such a good worker, such a good-looking guy, and we could. He was such a great heel, And I forgot what happened. I don't remember what happened to him. For some reason, it got pitched, but it never did come to fruition.
Right.
Wow. Well, you know, I talked about your favorite guys to work with, but who is the absolute easiest guy to work with?
Easiest guy to work with, Ricky and Robert. No doubt about it. Ricky and Robert were a dream. They were so over, and they were such a good tag team. And you couldn't even feel them. I mean, they were tough guys, but you couldn't even feel them. I mean, they were a complete night off. They'd go, whatever you want to do. They'd go, if you want to say, let's go 10 minutes, let's go 2 hours. They'd do it, and they would do it fantastically. And they were a dream to work with.
Really?
Yeah, and just fantastic. They can make anybody look good. They were such a good tag team. I don't know, I don't know where they rank on, Mount Rushmore of tag teams, but those guys are on it. I don't know where they rank in that top 4, but they're on it.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Who's the worst guy to work with?
I don't think I had guys that were just, and I don't want to, I wouldn't say and bury somebody that, start up an internet feud.
Very respectable.
I really didn't have many guys that were that tough to work with. I mean, people talked about Vader. Vader was a dream to work with. He was stiff, really stiff. But man, he took it the same way. He was a dream to work with. I mean, there were a lot of guys. I worked with Nathan Jones, and I enjoyed Nathan. He was not a guy. He was so freaking big. I remember telling him one time, I said, Nathan, if you just trust me, I promise you, I'm going to make you look really good. And from that point forward, he was perfect. Now he hit you so hard that he hit me across the back one time, and I thought he broke my ankles. He hit me so hard. He was the strongest human being, and that was tough to work with because he was so big and strong. But he was also a pretty good athlete.
Well,
actually, a real good athlete. I shouldn't say pretty. He was a good athlete.
Well, one of my favorite moments of the JBL era was the beer drinking contest between you and Stone Cold. Please talk about that briefly.
I'd love to. I was telling somebody about it today, and the beer drinking contest, because Vince McMahon didn't want us to do anything physical because Steve was hurt with his neck. Yes. My back was bothering me. So Vince didn't want us to do anything. We're in Detroit. It was Saturday night main event, I believe is what it was. And I threw a glass of beer in Steve's face.
Yeah.
And as a receipt, he threw a pitcher of beer in my face. The baby face always gets, the bigger bang.
Right.
It slipped out of his hand, and it breaks my nose. And blood's everywhere. And I come back, and Vince meets me, goes, what are you doing? I told you nothing physical. I was going to take the stunner, but nothing, nothing else.
Right.
And I just looked at Vince. I said, Vince, I'm the dartboard. I didn't hit myself. So you blame him.
That's great.
So, yeah, it was awesome. Steve was so good to work with, and Steve was so selfless. Steve would, oh my God, man, like that WrestleMania match he did with Kevin Owens. I mean, he made Kevin Owens, not that Kevin Owens needed it, but man, he could have gone out there and done it a million different ways, but he was so giving to Kevin. And I told him afterwards, I said, man, that was a wonderful thing you did for Kevin. And he was really proud of it. You could tell he was excited that he had done such a great job, but that's how Steve is. Steve's a very giving guy.
Yes.
That's awesome. John, thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I got a buddy of mine, loved you guys when you were APA, but he wanted to know how tough and a bad dude was Farouk.
I've always said if there's a dictionary and you have the word man in it and Ron's picture isn't beside it, you better take your dictionary back for refund. That dude was a man. I mean, just a man. 3-time All-American at Florida State, runner-up for the Heisman Trophy as a nose tackle. Bobby Bowden said he was the best football player he ever coached. That included Deion Sanders. I mean, Ron was once-in-a-lifetime athlete. He benched 225 48 times with the Cleveland Browns. Jeez. He broke Lyle Alzato's NFL rookie record. I mean, he was a world-class bencher, and he was legitimate, incredibly tough guy. Ron just had a presence. Nobody tried him. Ron was the nicest guy in the world. He worked stiff like I did. A bunch of guys did back in the day, but he took it the exact same way. He never complained, never. when Ron would walk into a room, I say this all the time. I was at an event the other day, and Mike Singletary walked into the room. And Mike's an older guy now, and not that big, but you knew when he walked in, somebody important had walked in. Whether you knew him or not, you knew that was somebody important. Ron's like that. When Ron walks in a room, you realize that's somebody important. Whether you know him or not, that's somebody important.
Wow. Fun question to follow up to that. How much did you guys sit back and talk football? Y'all both played college football. How much off camera or hanging out on the road, whatever? How much did you guys talk football, you and Rondell?
We still do. When they lost to, I think, Jackson State or whoever it was earlier in the year, I don't rib Ron about football. I don't text him and say, hey, what happened in the game or something. I don't do that. But I text him about something else that same day, and I forgot that they just lost to this team that used to be basically D1 AA.
Right.
And he texted me back with about 8 texts about why they lost and how bad it was. Ron, I'm sorry. I feel your pain. I know. I hate when my school loses too. We talk football all the time. We love football. I'm doing an appearance with him this weekend, and we'll sit at the table, and what we'll talk nearly the whole time is football. Ron and I love sports, and we love sitting around and talking about sports and all the things that are going on.
All right.
Back during your wrestling career, or even today, do you guys get together and watch games, or did you guys watch the Super Bowl together? I mean, well, who were the guys? Because there's a lot of former football players that get into wrestling, but what are some of those stories like? And did y'all watch games together?
Oh yeah, always. We worked so much back then, but we would always have Super Bowl off. We'd wrestle usually an afternoon show and then have the Super Bowl off that night. And that was one of the biggest parties of the year. Guys we'd have so much fun. But yeah, we would always watch the sports. Now we'd miss a lot of them because of our work schedule. I missed about probably 10, 12 years of sports because of our work schedule. You talk about guys during that era, I barely remember them because we were working so much.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun now to be able to just sit around and watch sports, which I love to do all day. And Ron does the same thing.
Well, I would love to know, and I know a lot of people would too, back in your prime of being a wrestler, what was the day in the life of JBL, the wrestler, like?
The statute of limitations is up, so I think I can say that now. We were, it's Groundhog Day.
Yes.
When we lived in Europe, it was really Groundhog Day, and we'd wrestle every night in the same venue. So we would wrestle, we go out to some bar or a restaurant and stay out till 2 or 3 in the morning, then get up at 10 or 11 o'clock, work out, then go to the arena, wrestle, do it all over again. And when we were at WWE, it was basically the same. You'd wrestle somewhere, you'd either drive 4 or 5 hours to the next town, sleep as long as you could, get up, go to the gym, get to the arena, do it all over again. It wasn't a glamorous lifestyle. It was a lot of fun because we didn't have internet. And so all we had was each other. And so that's why you hear the great road stories about when we were there, because we didn't have the ability to get on our phone and check news or be on social media. We didn't have social media.
Right. And a quick follow-up to that, how much training was involved? You said going to the gym. How often would you stay? How long would you stay in the gym every day?
45 minutes to an hour. I've always been just I'm a very simple guy. So is Ron as far as the gym is. I think multi-joint compound movements, just like Arnold and Franco were pretty successful with what they did. And people add a lot of bells and whistles to it, but they always go back to multi-joint compound movements. And it's not rocket science. You train hard and you eat decent and you get bigger muscles.
Yes.
When's the last time you've been in the gym? Is it still a lifestyle for you?
Yeah, it's like somebody asked Arnold that. Of course, he was the greatest bodybuilder of all time, and he said, "When was the last time I had breakfast?" To him, it's something he just does daily, and to me, it's just something I do several times a week. I enjoy going to the gym. I go to a pretty hardcore gym here, and the guys give me a pass because I'm the old guy now. It's like he used to be an athlete, so I can lift with the hardcore guys.
Right. Well, let's talk about a feud that really, really helped the career of someone else. Talk about your feud, please, with John Cena, and especially the I Quit match.
Yeah, the I Quit match was something I was very anxious to get done because I'd wrestled John on the loop, and I knew how good he was, and I knew the world was going to see that, but they hadn't seen it yet, and I wanted to have that I Quit match with him because it was such a hardcore blood and guts style match to show that he could do it, because I knew he could do it.
Right.
And I was so proud when he was able to be on that stage and show that his ability. And, you know, I was fortunate to be there. I'm glad I was. I take no credit for any part of his career. He would have made it anyway, but I certainly am glad I'm the guy at least that was able to hand him the torch.
Right. What do you say to people who say that wrestling is fake? Because there were some things in that match that had to be real. I mean, does it irk you? Does it irk you when people say wrestling is fake?
No, I don't even. No, absolutely not. And you know, I'm not sure if they're trying to take a shot at me. It certainly doesn't bother me. And if they're trying to say that it's scripted, I understand what they're trying to say.
Yes.
You know, I explain to wrestling scripted, it's not fake. We work in the round, and so we have a fan that is 5 feet from us. So we don't have the benefit of camera angle, stops, shut down shooting, pick it back up. Okay, you missed the punch, but the camera angle picks it up like you hit it. We don't have that. You know, guys get hit, and guys get hit hard. And so fake, you know, if a certain person is saying that because they mean it's scripted, I have no issue with that.
Yes.
It is scripted, but fake's not the word I'd use.
Right. Correct.
JBL, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I was born in Memphis. I live right outside of Memphis. And, you know, everywhere else, the king outside of Memphis is Elvis. But everybody inside of Memphis, it doesn't matter who you are, man, woman, old, it doesn't matter. The king is Jerry Lawler. And is there any fun stories that you can share with some of the folks? Because we have a Memphis following here about Jerry Lawler.
The question is what I could share. Like, I love Jerry. In fact, May 22nd, we're having a big fundraiser for Memphis Inner City Rugby, which is a wonderful program I work with some wonderful guys there, Shane Young, Devin O'Brien, that do incredible work in some of the worst child poverty in the country, getting these kids to graduate. 100% graduation rate, 100% of the kids not only graduate, but go somewhere after school, either college, military, or trade school. And Jerry Lawler is so kind to help us, and he's going to throw a party for us at his bar and grill on May 22nd, and hopefully raise a ton of money for a golf tournament the next day. But King is, it's funny because King, all the great things that he did, he ended up with WrestleMania with Michael Cole. It's just the best.
You know,
Man.
Have you ever gotten a chance to ride in his Batmobile?
I have been in his Batmobile. Yes, I was in Nashville when Lance Russell was there, and Jerry Lawler was there, and me and Michael Cole and Renee Young all got to take turns sitting in the Batmobile. So yes, I haven't been to his Batcave. You know, where he's got all of his memorabilia, his incredible memorabilia, and you know what's amazing is TV Guide did a deal on 25 most important TV moments in history. One of them was him slapping Andy Kaufman.
Absolutely, it was.
I mean, that was just groundbreaking that he did. I mean, that was way before Will Smith thought he could do it, and King did it a lot better.
Yeah, he did. Did you see Jerry's or his tweet, I should say, after the Oscars?
No, I didn't.
It was so funny because he said, "Man, me and Andy Kaufman did this 35 years ago."
You know, it's such a wonderful story. You know, they weren't going to do it, and Letterman was going to break, and Letterman decided not to do it. They had all the things scripted out, and Letterman decided last minute, he pulled the plug on it, and Jerry literally got up ad lib and just slapped the shit out of Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, he did.
My God, yeah. And then Kaufman goes off and does all this crazy stuff. King tells the greatest story the next day. He's going by Rodney Dangerfield's bar, and he goes, "Oh man, Rodney Dangerfield." And the guy goes, "Well, he'd like to meet you." And so he walks in there and he goes, "Man, that stuff he did with Andy Kaufman was great." I said, "What was Rodney Dangerfield like?" It was 10 o'clock in the morning. He's in his bathrobe talking to a young lady. Of course he was. Yeah. King has one of those lives that you look at it and go, that's pretty cool.
Right.
You know, he was about to wrestle Elvis before Elvis.
No.
Yeah. He had it all worked out with Elvis and Elvis's dad. And Elvis was a huge wrestling fan. It was going to be King versus King in Memphis. And Elvis had put on some weight. He wanted to lose the weight. He'd been on tour, and then he unexpectedly passed away. And that's what prevented King versus King in Memphis.
Man.
Wow, I have never heard that.
Yep, it was going to be judo versus wrestler. Elvis was big in the judo and all of his karate stuff, and it was going to be basically an MMA fight.
Wow. I never knew that.
Incredible.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
The King is one of a kind, man. He's unbelievable.
What's one of the funniest stories you could share with us with Jerry?
Jerry. The problem with Jerry is Jerry doesn't drink, and so
this has been said on the show before. Eric Bischoff said the same thing.
He never ended up in the hijinks with us in the bars or the cars. So he did tell me that when he pulled up into one of the movie sets, Jim Carrey was throwing oranges or something. Is oranges or apples at him, and he couldn't figure out why. And he finally went to him and goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I just figured that's what Andy Kaufman would do." And so, King, how do you get these situations?
That's great. That's absolutely great.
We love telling King about Michael Cole beating him at WrestleMania. And it's something that to this day, once you tell him, he will correct you. No, that was overturned. I don't remember that part.
Wow.
Man, talk about that match real quick, because obviously you were going to be the special guest referee, and then you got pulled for Stone Cold.
It's funny because matches that you remember are not necessarily great matches. King had some great matches in his career, some legendary matches. Who in the world else could sell out Memphis or any place?
The Mid-South Coliseum.
52 weeks a year. I mean, that's unprecedented what Jerry Lawler did. It was unbelievable what he did. But matches are not necessarily moments that are created by, that was a great arm drag and a backdrop and all this different tickles and tackles and 5-star. Michael Cole had a ton of heat. I mean, a ton of heat. And he's wrestling this legend in Jerry Lawler. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it's exactly what you wanted. I mean, it was Stone Cold was out there. He had all the bells and whistles in the world. Was it a 5-star match? No. But do people remember it? They remembered it a lot more than they would say the 5-star matches were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we got to take another short break, and when we come back, we are going to finish up the interview with John Bradshaw Layfield right here on Tide 100.9. Guess what? You don't want to miss it. And we are back here on Tide 100.9 FM talking with John Bradshaw Layfield right here on the Stingray Show. And John, you were actually there during this time. And I've got a viewer question that comes in from Joey Lozada, who is part of the CTS Sports Room. He wants to know, why, in your opinion, do you feel like that Vince McMahon went more towards Shawn Michaels rather than Bret Hart in the wrestling storylines?
That's a terrific question, and that's a timeless question. I'm not sure it can be answered by anybody but Vince. Obviously, okay. I can't read Vince's mind. I know what played out.
Yes.
I don't know why he didn't go with both.
Yes.
And I don't know if that was the plan. Because when he had Rock and Stone Cold, he went with both.
Right.
When you had Hogan and Warrior, he kind of went with both. He kind of went with Warrior, WrestleMania 6, but he kind of went with both. And I'm not sure it was an either or. I think Bret thought it was, and maybe it was. I love Bret. Bret was a terrific champion, and I remember when we lost him to the WCW, I thought, man, this may be it.
Yes.
I'd never seen guys leave a territory like that, like you had Scott Hall and Kevin Nash leave, and you had Hogan over there, which he'd already left, but he showed up in WCW. And then you had Bret Hart, who's this incredible champion who had been a cornerstone of our company, leave as well. Yes. It was an incredible time, and I'm not sure why. It was something. I'm not sure if it was an either or it was just, hey, we're going to go with Shawn at this time.
Right. And another question that he has is, what was going through your mind at Judgment Day 2004 when you were fighting Eddie Guerrero and he got busted up so bad?
I didn't know how much blood he lost.
Yes.
It's crazy to say. I was, I'm obviously closer to him than anybody, but maybe Nick Patrick, the referee. I guess it was Nick. I'm sure he was refereeing most of my matches.
Yes.
I didn't realize how much blood there was until I saw it back. I knew there was a lot of blood. I mean, I knew there was a lot of blood. I'd been busted open a couple times from the title belt. And when I saw it back, I realized how much there was. Now, when I got to the back, Eddie collapsed, and they put him on a gurney. He was fighting the doctors, and they said, go talk to him. And I said, I don't know. What do you mean to say? And I walked in there, and Eddie right away got calm. He goes, hey, S.A., good match. And I said, Eddie, they got to take you to the hospital. He said, okay. And that was it. You know, I was so happy because I thought he may want to fight me too. I don't know. But he was calm. You know, he was very proud of the match, but I did not realize how much blood had been lost.
Right.
JBL asked Eric Bischoff this question when he was on our show, and you know, I always kind of enjoy picking you guys' brain on this, but who is someone that you have met that you were shocked that they were a wrestling fan? They came up and they started talking to you. Was there another celebrity or a politician or somebody? But who was it that came up to you like, oh wow, they watch, they know what's going on?
No doubt about it. I was on the shuttle from D.C. to New York. All the guys were, and Bill Bradley was on it. The old New York Nick and the senator, and Hillary Clinton was on it when she was I guess she was a senator at the time. Anyway, right. She's sitting in the exit aisle, and she has a Secret Service in front and behind, and I'm literally the one seat right next to her across the aisle in the exit aisle. So it's literally just like me and her. There's nobody on her inside. There's nobody on my inside. So it's just kind of me and her. And she leans over and says, where are you guys at tonight? And I thought, you guys are kidding me. There's no way. And I said, we're at the Garden. We're flying up to Madison Square Garden. She goes, oh, man, me and Bill used to go watch the UWF with Dr. Death and Bill Watts. And she starts telling me all these names. And when she first said she was a fan, I thought, come on, she's a politician. There's no way.
Right.
Then she starts telling me all these names that there's no way you would know unless she was a fan. And so I said, would you like to come to the event tonight? And she said, oh, I'd love to. She goes, I've been wrestling forever. She goes, but I got so many appearances I've got to do. I can't. But it was unreal. She talked wrestling with me the whole flight, and then when we landed all the way to baggage claim, she wanted to talk wrestling.
Wow.
Yeah, that was shocking to me. I didn't expect that.
What was something that she asked you that just kind of took you back a little bit?
Mainly about Bill Watts' territory, about Dr. Death, about Bill himself, about Junkyard Dog, about all these guys that she watched. She just would bring up the names and what she saw and how her and Bill would sneak into the matches, and it was really cool.
Wow.
Well, let me ask you this: a quick follow-up. Is there any political office run in your future, JBL?
You know, I'd love to answer the question in short. Yeah, I would. I thought if I could do something that would make a difference, I would do it in a heartbeat. I think there's so much. There's some real dumbasses we have in DC.
Absolutely.
And I'm up here with these guys, and I see it. I see how unqualified these guys are, and I don't know if I'd be any more qualified, but I would be honest. And I'm not sure we have a lot of that. You know, these guys just want to get on social media and they want to get on TV, and that's really all their end goal is. But if I could do something, if I could propose a balanced budget amendment, if I could do something with immigration reform and inner city schools, which is really my passion, and what to do with China and North America, I would certainly consider it. I don't know if one person up there would make any difference. I'm not sure I could get elected if I could. I don't know. I might try.
Yes.
There's two things on the show I refuse to talk about. It's COVID and politics, but I will kick myself forever if I don't put this bee in your bonnet right now. The fair tax. We need it in America. Let's get rid of the IRS. Let's do the fair tax. That's all I'll get to say on that.
I completely agree. And the problem with, being from Texas, the problem with the border, when you talk about the immigrants that come over, you're talking about fixing symptoms and not the problem.
Right.
The symptoms, it's like giving a person with a brain tumor an aspirin for their headache. It may make them feel better for a short time, but it didn't really do anything for the problem. And our problem is immigration reform. We've got to do something to take care of people that want to come to this country, and that solves the issue. You can bail water out of a boat, but until you plug the leak, and the leak is immigration reform, it doesn't do much good.
Well,
wow. The JBL, you got to run, man. I'll put the bumper sticker on the car tomorrow.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about something that's happened recently for you. Talk about what it meant to you to be inducted into the
Yes.
WWE Hall of Fame, please.
Well, Vince McMahon called me and he said, "Hey, I want you to come to the Hall of Fame." And I said, "Yeah, whatever you need, boss." And he goes, "You're going in it." Well, in that case, I said, "Well, in that case, I can make it."
Right. But what did it mean to you to be inducted?
My whole life, I wanted to be a wrestler. You know, I remember my youngest memories with my grandfather watching wrestling and watching Fritz von Erich. And so, for the end of that culmination of that journey, my grandfather passed away before I ever got a chance to wrestle. But for that whole journey to come to fruition with being in the Hall of Fame, that's for me a dream come true. I mean, it's just when I look around and I see people like Bruno Sammartino and Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan and Undertaker and Stone Cold, and Shawn Michaels and Buddy Rogers, and I look at that and realize I think they made a mistake. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I shouldn't be buying a ticket to come look at these guys' statue, but
Yes.
it's an incredible honor to be in there. It's words would not even suffice. I don't know the right words to say how grateful I am to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I've got
To say
two
this.
questions left.
Oh,
Go
go on,
ahead,
Steven. Go on,
Go
Steven.
ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. JBL, I just got to ask you, for your personal opinion, who is your top 4 guys? Who's your Mount Rushmore of guys that you just think are the greatest wrestlers of all time?
I think the top, I think 2 or 3 are easy. I think Bruno Sammartino. Nobody can sell out the Garden 187 straight times. That's something he
Special.
was the cornerstone the WWE was built on. You know, Buddy Rogers was the hottest heel in the world, and he took the title off the right heel. But what a run Sammartino had! I mean, that will never be equaled. And Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania was what gave this rise to this entire WrestleMania that's going on. It's just incredible what Hulk Hogan meant to this business. And then I think you get into some gray areas. Where do you put Stone Cold and The Rock and Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, and Undertaker? I think getting to 4 people, just 4 people, is pretty tough. And Jack Briscoe, where do you put Jack Briscoe? Who was a great Harley Race, great NWA champions. I mean, there's been some wonderful champions. To me, it's really hard to narrow it down to 4, but it's hard for me to argue in the top 4 that you should have Bruno and Hulk. Yes. And probably Stone Cold. But then I start saying, then probably the right, so it's tough for me. It's a wonderful debate. I'd be happier listing a top 10 than I would a top 4, because 4 is pretty tough.
Right. Well, obviously, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. What is in the future for JBL?
Well, you're down there in Alabama, which I understand Conrad Thompson, hadn't he bought the state by now? I think Billionaire Connie, is pretty much owns the Southern United States right now. So, I have a fun podcast I do with Gerald Briscoe. We have a lot of fun interviewing old guys and like us, as contemporaries. And that's fun. That's fun for me. Mm-hmm. My biggest thing I want to do in the next however long I have on this earth is I'm working with this wonderful group in Memphis. I've worked with some of the worst child poverty in the world down in East Africa, Malawi, Tanzania, Zimbabwe. I've worked in the slums of Mumbai and Delhi, and there's a lot of inequities in the world that are brought about by low-income areas, and I want to find a remedy for that. Martin Luther King, the great Dr. King, that was his great passion as he got older, because he realized the same thing we talk about, say, immigration. You can fix certain things, but you got to break generational cycles. Right. And that's the hardest thing with low-income, at-risk areas, is breaking generational cycles to really make a difference in these kids' lives and eradicate poverty in certain areas. And I think it can be done. And I hope that the next 40 or 50 years, if I get that long, or 4 or 5, or however long it is, that's what work I get to do, and hopefully have some success with it. I'm working with some wonderful guys, by the way, in Memphis. Shane Young and Devin O'Brien. I think the world of those young men and that whole team down there at Memphis Inner City Rugby.
Well, I got 2 questions for you, JBL. One, Who was a guy that you always would watch wrestle when you're in the back or whatever? Who was one guy that you would always enjoy watching or wanted to watch?
There were several. Shawn Michaels was unbelievable. I mean, that guy was just, he was great, in the 2000s. But when he was younger and just had this amount of athletic ability that God gave him, it was unbelievable to watch him. You talk about a roster that was loaded, man. We had Stone Cold, we had The Rock. You couldn't get Stone Cold to go under 30 minutes on any show, anywhere, anytime. He wanted to go out there and perform for the people. The Undertaker was the same way. I mean, there was such incredible talent. I tell you, the guy that I would watch in Europe that was the best I ever saw, was Dave Finlay, Fit Finlay. He was the
Really?
best, no doubt about it. Not a doubt in my mind. Best wrestler I've ever seen.
Wow.
When he came to the States, he was a little bit older, and then he got hurt, and he was still great. But when he was in Europe, that man was on a different level than the rest of us.
Yes.
And I used to go out and watch him wrestle every single night there in Europe, and with him and Tony St. Clair and him and Dave Taylor. And man, those were some incredible times.
Well, obviously, we are right here in the state of Alabama. Do you happen to have a favorite match that you had with anyone in the state of Alabama?
No, but I'll tell you a story. Ron was sitting backstage, and I was JBL. And I was out there, and I was cutting a promo on the crowd, doing my heel stuff. And there were some police officers there, and they were kind of snickering, and they're telling guys that he's really good. He's good at what he does. And then I said something about Paul Bear Bryant, and literally the cop says, he needs to shut his damn mouth.
That's great. That's great.
Fantastic.
I used to sing not the national anthem, "God Bless America," just as a joke. When I was overseas, because the Sheik used to do it. All this,
Right.
don't chant USA. And so I just did it one time as a joke, and the place almost rioted. It was unbelievable, and I was doing it as a joke, and I realized how much heat it got. So I would make Tony Chimmel carry the ring announcer, carry the flag around, and he would wave it, and I would sing "God Bless America." Well, of course, they want to throw stuff at the flag, and Chimmel would have it. So he'd be wearing his nice suit. They just cover him in beer, Cokes, everything.
That's great.
Every single night. It was awesome.
That is great.
I was in Northern Ireland one time, and some kid had a sign that says "JBL, you suck" or something like that. So I grabbed the sign from him, and I go to the ring, and here comes my tag team partner, who was Kurt Angle at the time. And so Kurt gets up there and he goes, "What's that sign?" Well, I hadn't a chance to do anything with it because Kurt's music played. And I said, "Man, some guy wrote this sign about me. Can you believe this?" He goes, "You mean to tear it up?" I said, "Yes." So he tore the sign up. And when he did, this kid started crying on the front row. And I started laughing. And Kurt looked at me, and I thought he was going to punch me. He goes, "Did you get that from that kid?" I said, "Yeah, but you tore it up." He goes, "You're an asshole." He goes, "You're a bad guy." And so now I've got the whole crowd and my tag team partner all booing me.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Well, before we let you go, is there any chance that we could get one final wrestling god from you, please, sir?
Well, you got to understand, there are wrestling Hall of Famers. There are icons. There's even legends, but there's one and only one. Wrestling God.
That is fantastic, man.
Oh, JBL, you're hitting home runs and now you're hitting grand slams. Tell us one final funny story that you always enjoy telling from your days in wrestling.
Well, that's no pressure at all. Tell us a funny story. We had so much fun. We had so much fun with, and I've told this story a million times. It was again with Kurt Angle as my tag team partner. And Big Show I would always call Big Show Shrek. And I go, "Hey, Shrek." He goes, "Come along, donkey." He called me donkey. It's just, I love Show. Thank God he's a gentle giant.
Yes.
So we're in somewhere over in Europe, somewhere, and I'm in the ring with Kurt Angle, and again with my pal Kurt Angle, who really is my pal. I love Kurt. and Big Show's coming to the ring, and all of a sudden, halfway up the aisle, it says, "Hey, now you're a rock star," and Kurt Angle says to me, he goes, "What is that?" I said, "That's Shrek's theme music." And Kurt says, "He's gonna kill us." And I said, "Don't worry, I did it. I'm gonna take the blame for this, okay?" He goes, "Well, thank God." So Big Show is now, he's running as we're speaking. He's running to the ring. He comes to the ring and he goes, "I swear to God, Kurt Angle did every bit of it. I had nothing to do with it." And I jumped out of the ring. Big Show beat me half to death.
That's
He got me in the corner. And I said, "All right, go ahead, you big ogre. Go ahead and hit me." And he hit me so hard with that I thought he broke my sternum and everything inside my body. I said, "All right, okay. Are we over being mad?"
Oh, that's great.
He has got me back a few times. It is a love relationship. It's not a love-hate. I love Big Show.
Right. Well, JBL, look, man, we really, really want to thank you for this interview. It has been fantastic. And real quick, before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug, give a shout out to, or tell people how they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I really like to plug, the reason I'm on social media, is Memphis Center City Rugby. We're doing our fundraiser in May, and we've got some really cool gifts to auction off. We set up a eBay auction site. We got a title belt signed by Undertaker and Stone Cold and Booker T and some other guys. Ruby Riot was kind enough to, unbelievable, she gave me a WrestleMania boots that she'd had made. So we got some pretty cool stuff we're going to auction off and try to raise some money for these kids. And that's the main focus I have. If I'm going to plug something, I'm not going to, that's what I want to plug.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to say anything nice about Gerald Briscoe. He's from Oklahoma. Trump was right about the wall. He was wrong about the place. We need the wall between Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Keep all the Briscoes out of the promised land.
Right. Well, look, man.
Let me tell you, wait, before you go, let me tell you one story. Okay. So Dick Murdoch was a great wrestler. I was tag team partners with Dick Murdoch. They talk about an honor. Cornette says Dick Murdoch is to wrestling what a trick shot artist is to pull. He'd get there, but he'd get there in ways you wouldn't believe. And so Dick, one night, he never let me drive. I would have to hand him Coors Light. And I'd hand him a Coors Light going down the road. He had this song that he made by Six Pack Productions with Dusty Rhodes. "Take Me Drunk, I'm Home" was the song. And it was horrible. He'd sing it over and over and over. And I'd hand him beer and he'd throw some of them out the window. And I finally realized I had to hand him with the mouth to him. So finally I'm handing him beer. Anyway, one morning he gets up and he's sick. I don't know if he's hungover, sick, or whatever. And we had to go to Fort Lawton, Oklahoma. And he goes, "Kid, you're driving." So he's sitting over in the passenger seat, and he was never like this. He was just, he was always white as a ghost. Black Bart said he had a body of an upside-down light bulb. Dick had the worst body. Tough man. So I said, "Dick, you mean to pull over?" He goes, No, kid, keep driving. So I said, "Dick, you mean to pull over?" He goes, "Keep driving, kid." We got up to the Red River to cross into Oklahoma. And I said, "Dick, you need me to pull over?" He goes, "Keep driving." Got across the Red River. He got up and threw up. He got out and threw up all over Oklahoma and got back in the truck. He said, "Don't ever throw up in Texas, kid."
Oh, that's great.
That's a true story. Unbelievable. I laughed about it. I'm still laughing about it.
Well,
that's
every
great.
night Dick would say, "Go ahead and start the match, kid. When it turns to shit, tag me in. I'll straighten it out."
Oh, well, JBL, the Longhorns are coming to the SEC. Please come see us in Tuscaloosa. We want to hear if you could ever come back to the show. We would love to have you. It would be thoroughly entertained. This has been wonderful. There's a million questions I still want to ask you. But if you ever need help,
and I am not too big a fan of. I'm glad that Texas is in the SEC. I think it's wonderful to do better, but they're not ready for SEC football. That SEC football is the national championship game last year was basically an SEC conference game. That's how good. That's how good those guys are. I mean, it's just a different level that they play, and it's going to take Texas several years. They have the money that behind the school. They hopefully will figure it out, but they in Oklahoma are going to be in for a rude awakening when they start playing those SEC teams every single week.
At least Texas fans are smart enough to admit it. Oklahoma fans, well, I'll let you talk about those guys.
Smart never went well together.
Well, JBL, hopefully we can have you on during the college football season.
I love college football, and I
Yes.
watch almost every dang game. So I'd love to come back on and talk college football with you guys.
We'll
All
do
right,
it.
man.
Absolutely.
Yes, well, you have a great rest of your evening, and we will do it again soon, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Great meeting you.
All right, you too. Thank you. Well, Heath, that was fantastic.
That was awesome. Oh, JBL was great. That was one of the best interviews we've ever had here on the Stingray Show.
Yes.
That was absolutely fun. It was insightful. JBL's a class act guy. I didn't know that. Know it now. Carries himself with character, with class, and he's nothing but a great guy. And what a fun interview that was.
And man, who knows? Like we said, he may show back up in college football to talk about the SEC and the Texas-Oklahoma rivalry.
Yeah, I always liked JBL. I'm older. I remember the Attitude Era when he was with APA. That's how I remember Bradshaw. And I always loved that gimmick. I thought it was great. But having him, the man clearly has got a head full of sense. He's very successful in everything that he's done. And he's just a good guy. And you want JBL to be your neighbor. Like I said, never was a huge fan of him, but now I'm a massive fan of the guy. What a great guy. And just, I can't stress enough, what a class act of a human.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, on that note, we are going to sign off right here on the Stingray Show. We hope that you guys have enjoyed it. Make sure you tune in again for yet another Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. And on that note, we will see you guys on down the road.